I actually worked on the SS tonight. I've had a set of BMR extended trailing arms sitting around for this, uppers and lowers, for about the past 3 years. There was a giant issue with a company called Street Trends, and so I actually ended up getting a full refund, and I got a store credit, which basically just means he drop shipped me parts from BMR, which was wonderful because I ended up getting my money back, and I basically waited 6 months for this dude to fucking lie to me. And then I got a set of extended trailing arms, all the hardware, nice BMR pieces for free, basically. So for those who aren't aware, the B-bodies from the factory, all the 91 and 96s, I know for a fact 92 to 96, I'm not sure about the 91s, but they all have the rear axle set slightly forward in the wheel well. Unless you really paid attention to these cars, sometimes it'll look like the axle's out of alignment, but it really isn't. The only way really to correct that is an extended trailing arm, so it will move the center line of the axle back of the whole entire rear end. And they offer different kits. I know BMR offers a kit, which is what I went with because I've had a good experience with their products in these cars since I've got both their front and rear sway bars and now the trailing arms. I do know that there are a couple other companies, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But the BMRs in particular, they relocated 3/8 of an inch. I've seen some guys, they have issues with the factory drive shaft, and it'll pull the slip yoke out too far from the output shaft of the transmission. I don't seem to have any of the problems yet, but I won't be able to test drive it until tomorrow since per the instructions, I got to let the Loctite cure for 24 hours, and I don't really want a trailing arm falling out of my car. So yeah, I enjoy driving it all in one piece, and I really don't want to ruin this car. So yeah, I mean, it ended up taking about 7 hours. We fought crusty original Midwestern hardware, which kind of sucked. But now, the car no longer has a stink bug stance. It actually sits slightly lower in the rear than it does the front. And I'm thinking about lowering this car more anyways, probably. I talked with a couple guys, and they scrounged up some part numbers for me, and I did find links to them online. Beltec actually doesn't offer the kit anymore, but it's about the lowest off-the-shelf spring that you can get for these without going to a full coilover setup, which requires modifications, custom front control arms, usually tubular ones. I think Hotchkiss and I think Street Tech Performance make them. Maybe a couple others if I'm not mistaken, but the rears aren't too difficult to do coilovers, but just really not something I'd be looking to do on this car. I'd more be looking into doing bags and, just laying the thing down on the frame. I think that'd look a lot better to me for how I use this car if I keep it. But the first batch of parts is also here for this. So the oil cooler, pan baffle, the oil drain petcock kit, front gasket set, so front main, water pump, all that stuff is here. There might be a couple other parts trickling in here or there that I forgot about, but for the most part, a bulk of the big stuff is here. So I've got about the first 2 or 3 weeks cut out of work. I got to go run and grab my rear subframe alignment tool since I will be putting lower control arm bushings in this, since those are literally the only bushings left that are original to the car. Everything else has been either poly or new rubber bushings, but yeah, those are pretty much the only ones that are left. But I'm not going to do the eccentric bushings I was initially planning on doing. For those who aren't aware on this either, you can put your eccentric and a standard, you can put your eccentric bushing in one spot on the control arm, the inner or the outer, and I can't remember which one, but it will dictate. You can either remove your tow rod completely, since you will be able to set your toe setting due to the eccentric bushing, that you can set it, lock it in place, and that eliminates your need for a tow rod. I've seen some guys do that on road race cars before, and then they'll sometimes people will run the factory tow rods. They're fairly thin, they're not very strong, they're pretty light, so they run those as a backup in case of a bushing moving out of its seat from where it's been locked. But I'm just going to end up putting a set of standard black poly white lines in it. I've had really good luck with their products and Petters in the past, so I don't have any reason to doubt them. But I just figured I'd show you guys what's been going on, since harvest is going to be firing up here in about 2 or 3 weeks. So the trains are going to start rolling in for us at grain inspection, and really not going to have much time. So I'm probably just going to vanish off of here until about December, at least posting anything, talking about any of the stuff that's coming up for these cars. Well, this car, since I don't really do shit with this. So yeah, hopefully I just get slammed with 90-hour weeks. I stack a shit ton of overtime on it, and then I can just buy everything outright for this and not have to sit around and save. But worst part is get all the overtime and never have time to spend the money or even look at what you want to spend the money on. So yeah, hopefully this winter though, once harvest gets done, probably late November, maybe end of December, depending on how good and how big the crop is this year, then we'll start on all the parts I said earlier. We'll start on the coilover relocation kit for the rear and prep for a mini tub next year. And we'll do the subframe connectors after I do the control arm bushings and align the rear cradle to make sure everything's kosher. I'm still trying to track down a driveline vibration, but I have an inkling that the drive shaft might be at a very precarious angle due to the original or the older Hinson mounts that are in this car. I've just seen a rash of more and more complaints about people long term with their products. So thankfully I'll just be moving everything over to the same hardness bushing that I do have with the rev shift pieces for the transmission cross member and mount. So hopefully that'll soak up a little bit more of the vibration, and then after that, pretty much, that's all I got to do. But my only other thought would be it's either a stub is pulled out of the seat in the actual Detroit, the true track in the rear end, or a stub is twisted, or I have a bent control arm. But there's no way to tell that. It wouldn't surprise me if something did get fucked up with how terrible the roads are around here because Illinois. And that's just how we do stuff. So I don't know. I guess we got some troubleshooting to do this weekend or this winter. But worst comes to worst, if I have to buy a two-piece drive shaft, I have to buy a two-piece drive shaft. Really don't want to deal with the carrier bearing, but worst comes to worst, I don't think that's a terrible choice to have to make. So I guess I'll, unless I get some spare time sitting around, I guess I'll see everybody in either late December or early next year. So hope everybody has fun in the meantime.